What's up everybody, I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2020 Volvo XC90 T8 Inscription. So the Inscription trim is the top trim here for the XC90, and it's very nicely equipped. I mean, all Volvos are really nice inside, but I think this kind of takes it up the next level. And the T8 also gives you some nice little features as well, which we'll get to. But yeah, I love how light this interior feels. It's very bright with the moonroof and stuff.
Yeah, I really like it, and it's so nice to be able to have like a bright cabin, because when it's dark, it makes it seem more cave-like. This just makes it feel nice and bright and airy.
Yeah, and I love how they're so committed to making it so bright that even like the steering wheel is like the same cream color as the seats, which usually, you know, you can get like cream seats in other cars, but they don't go as far as the steering wheel. This, like, they fully commit to the bright and airy thing, which I really love. But anyway, so first thing, sitting down in the seats in the XC90, they're super comfortable, super adjustable.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that the bolstering on the passenger side on the bottom, it is a little bit tight, so that'll really come down to what your body type is and if that is comfortable enough for you or not.
Yeah, so you definitely want to sit in one of these and see how it feels. But they do have a lot of adjustments, and you can adjust the torso bolster, so you can make that wider or narrower, at least for the driver here. And so that's great, especially if you're on the smaller side. You can have them hug you in a little bit more, which is nice. And it also has adjustable lumbar. There's also an adjustable thigh support here, which is really great that has that. And these seats also have massage as a option. You don't have to have that, but it does have it, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is that it's also in the passenger side. You also have that extended thigh support as well, and so it is really nice. You get just as many things for the passenger as you do for the driver, and so the passenger feels way more comfortable. You even have the memory seats.
Yeah, and passenger memory is rare, so even in luxury cars that's kind of a rare thing. So Volvo really treats the passenger just as nicely as they treat the driver, which, like I said, isn't super common, so I definitely want to give Volvo kudos for that. But the massage is great. There's like 5 different programs for the massage, and I'd say it's one of the better ones out there. It's a lot more advanced than some of the more basic ones from lower brands and stuff like that, but it's not probably going to be as amazing as like a Mercedes S-Class or something, but it's not far off. They're very comfortable whenever you have the massage going. They're also heated and ventilated seats here, and both functions work well. I was just using the cooled seats here on a hot summer day, and they do actually cool both the seat bottom and the seat back, which might not sound impressive, but a lot of vehicles struggle to actually make these seats cold when you have cooled seats. Volvo does it well, and so I think these seats are a 10 out of 10 in my book.
Yeah, and even the heated seats work well when we did try it at night, so.
Yeah, so they work great. Next, the steering wheel here in the XC90, which is the same as any other Volvo wheel, and it's a little different if you're not used to Volvos. It has a really great 9-3 grip, nice 10 and 2 notches, but the buttons are going to be a little foreign to you. So, you know, you have your cruise control stuff on the left-hand side here, and on the right-hand side you have your voice controls, and then also your skipping tracks and doing, you know, your volume and stuff. You have that, and then there's also this other little menu which will bring up your gauge cluster info, and so in here you can quickly dial up a phone number, you can see what media is playing, look at your trip computer, that kind of stuff. And moving on to the gauges there, they're all digital here, which is beautiful, and that's standard across the board in all the XC90s, and they look really good. I also like how in the middle there you can have your media being displayed, or you can have the navigation maps or 1 or 2 other things, but really just simple but still really good looking gauges. And of course here in the T8 version, being the plug-in hybrid, you have instead of a normal tach like you'd have in the T6 and T5 versions, in this you have a power meter, so that will vary depending on the amount of battery charge you have, your situation, all that kind of stuff, as far as whether it's using the gas engine or the electric motors. But honestly, this vehicle is so refined that I had trouble sometimes even telling whenever I was up and driving when the gas engine was kicking on and when it was off. When you're stopped, you can hear it a little bit more, but this vehicle is so refined you don't even really notice. There's also a heads-up display here, which is helpful, of course, for keeping your eyes on the road, and will show you your speed and the speed limit, as well as a few other safety things, and it's a really nice display for that. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, right up top you might see the Bowers & Wilkins Wilkins speaker right at the top of the dashboard there. And so that is a $3,200 option for the Bowers & Wilkins system, and I love that option. So you do get a standard Harman Kardon stereo, which is 600 watts and 14 speakers, but this Bowers & Wilkins ups the speaker count and the wattage. But it's so clear and crisp. Every time I'm in one of these Volvos, I had an S60 several months back, and that too, I love listening to these Bowers & Wilkins systems, listening to your music in it. It's truly a delight. Like, there's good sounding stereos from other companies, and then there's the Bowers & Wilkins, which is probably in my top 5 favorite audio systems I've ever reviewed. It is so nice sounding. I just don't even want to like drive. I just want to like sit back and listen to my music in this thing. It is so good. I mean, the vocals are so clear, but it hits so hard with the bass, and the instrumentals are so defined. And it's just, I'm not an audiophile, so I can't dissect it as well as some others can, but this system is pretty universally praised by anyone who encounters it. It is fantastic. If you're into music and you can afford to pay $3,200 extra for a speaker upgrade and a stereo upgrade, go for it. 100%. Easy no-brainer option. I love that system. And so it's paired up with this touchscreen you have here in all Volvos now. It's standard equipment and everything. And so it's a vertical touchscreen, and it's really responsive. This actually won an award for being one of the easiest to use touchscreens recently, because it's, I think, really well laid out. So you only have, the 4 options in your climate control here. And I've reviewed the system in the past, but I just think it's really, I guess, just simple and easy to navigate through. It is a little bit of a learning curve, so if you're used to the typical touchscreens you've encountered in the past 5 years, it is different, but once you learn it, I personally really like it. The only downside is that CarPlay or Android Auto is on a little bit of a smaller display, because this is, vertical with its orientation, so you don't have a massive 12-inch wide CarPlay display like you usually get in, some of the other newest stuff from other companies. That's the only downside, but the CarPlay still works just as well in my book, and so yes, it's not going to be a pretty display, but it still works totally fine, and I really like the way this system is set up.
Yeah, I definitely think from a passenger standpoint, it is very easy to use and quick and responsive, and it definitely is a very nice system to use.
Beneath the screen here, you'll see a really nice volume knob, and this is the first place you'll encounter this diamond knurled metal you have on all the knobs. And then even just the buttons here have this really almost like a glass-like feeling to them. It's really, everything here feels very premium. You have this driftwood that looks really nice too, and has a nice texture to it all over the place.
And coming down, you have this really cool Orfers crystal gear shifter, and that was one thing that I really enjoyed and I think is super duper cool. It lights up at night, and I don't know, I just really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's a really classy way to, I guess, make this feel a little bit more expensive, because no one else really does it. There are some others, and I think BMW and 1 or 2 others are starting to add a crystal thing here or there, but it's not this huge chunk of crystal like you have here on these, and it just has such a great way to it when you're shifting gears and stuff.
Yeah, you get that little bit of extra bling.
Yeah, and it's not as blingy as with the Mercedes GLS, for example. You have ropes of ambient lighting that makes it feel like you're in a dance club or something. So those are a little more in your face with the bling. This is subtle. It's oh hey, there's just this massive diamond that's lit up just down here by your cup holders, basically.
But it's not a diamond.
Right. But it's very, it's just this glass, crystal. It's just really cool to have. And I think it makes it feel a lot more, expensive in here.
Yeah.
And you have this piano black finish for everything, and even the engine start stop switch, which is this knob to twist. That's also has more of that knurled metal. The drive mode selector has it, and in this area you'll also see a power outlet as well as 2 cup holders and another little spot where you're supposed to leave the key or something. You can also push this area back, and you'll see a tiny little spot that also I think is perfectly fit for the key. So great to have those storage spaces. Other storage spaces here in the Volvo, I will say it's maybe not as spacious as some of the 3-row crossovers, especially from the non-luxury brands that have a lot more storage up front here, but it is still pretty good. So in addition to those areas, you have large pockets here in the doors with a bottle holder. In the center here, you have this armrest, which has some padding on it, and there's, by the way, padding everywhere. It is a little bit on the firmer side because it's just basically just covered in a layer of leather, and that's it. But even by your knees here, that's also covered in leather. It's not super soft, but it's very expensive feeling. You even have some soft material up here, and so that all feels great.
But the padding for the knee spot is only on the driver's side. It's not on the passenger side. You do have this row of plastic here, which is fine, but
it would be nice if they padded that for you, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's maybe the only little downside. But anyway, you open up the center armrest and then you have a pretty shallow space, honestly. You can fit, you know, a glasses case or your cell phone, something like that. By the way, if you do want to run CarPlay, you do have to put it through this center armrest. You're going to want to leave your phone in there for that, because that's where you're going to find your 2 USB jacks up front here. And so good to have that. But yeah, just it's not a ton of space. Most of the other luxury 3-row crossovers, though, don't have a ton of space. But if you go to something like a Honda Pilot, your mind's going to be blown with how much space you have in the center area. You know, this is a lot less than that kind of stuff, but still, you know, is going to be okay for most people, I think. Not a big deal. Backseat space here in the XC90. So of course there's 3 rows here, and so in the Inscription trim, you know, you have the 2 captain's chairs there, and it's a really impressive setup. So first we'll talk about the second row though. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I easily have, I'd say, about 4 inches of legroom to spare back there. So it's pretty spacious. Might not be the most spacious out there, but again, most luxury 3 rows are a little bit tighter on space than some of the non-luxury 3 rows are, but it still should be plenty of space. I had my father-in-law sitting behind me, and he's how tall?
He's 6'2".
Yeah, 6'2", and he fit totally fine. So, you know, I think it's gonna be pretty good. And those second row passengers also have their own dedicated air vents on the B pillar, and then there's also air vents here when you look forward, as well as their own climate control back here and their own heated seats, which is great. There's also another power outlet, as well as 2 more cup holders back there. But you don't have any USB jacks back there, and that is one thing that, you know, even some of the luxury competition does offer, and some of the non-luxury stuff for sure has, you know, several USB jacks back there. So that is one thing that's missing a little bit. But anyway, they're comfortable second row seats nonetheless. There was also pockets in those doors back there for a bottle or something. But the really impressive thing is they actually do not have armrests on those second row captain's chairs, because they wanted to make it super easy to go into the third row. And so because of that, I mean, you look at that space, I mean, it is, you could crawl through the middle there, whereas with some of these others, you have to be like doing a tightrope walk to get in between those 2 seats. And this, it's wide open, so it's really very easy to get into the third row. Probably the easiest of any luxury crossover for sure, getting into that third row. And once you are in that third row, it's a little bit tight. So with that second row seat slid all the way back, again, me being 5'9", I can like straddle the seat so that I, you know, can fit, but my left knee is jammed into the seat back, and my right one, you know, I kind of just have in the middle there, so that's fine. But not super comfortable, but as long as the second row passenger is able to move their seat up a little bit, you should have some workable space there for, you know, average size adults, I guess. As long as they're, you know, not over 6 feet tall everywhere, you should be able to fit them okay. But, you know, probably not the most space, but still a decent amount. And there's also cup holders in that third row. There's also their own little cubbies. There's even speakers right next to their ears in the ceiling back there. So a really nice sound experience even for the third row. I was playing my own music, and even people in the third row, you can still jam out and have a really high quality sound experience. So that's great. And so overall, I mean, I think it's a good amount of space for a luxury 3-row, and compared with stuff like I reviewed the BMW X7, that was a little tighter, I think, in its third row. So I think this probably does it a little bit better than some. Trunk space here in the XC90 is pretty good. It's an average amount of trunk space you get for a 3-row crossover like this. It's a nice wide space. There's a little pocket there on the left-hand side too. And beneath the floor, in this one, since it's the T8, you have just a spot there to put your charging cable, and that's about it. Now, you'd have a little bit more space if you were in a T6 or a T5, but otherwise, you know, you just have, you know, a very minimal amount of space under the floor there. If you do need more space in the cargo area, you can drop down those third row seats very easily. That you just pull that little lever and it flips right down. Then that will give you, of course, more space. If you wanted to use this as a very spacious 2-row crossover, you can totally do that as well. But yes, that's all our thoughts here on the interior of the XC90. Overall, it's a really nice thing to live with, and you can go watch my driving review of my week with the XC90 T8. I already did a review on one about 6 months ago or so, but spending a week with one here was really, I think, cool, and especially with the electric component, being able to drive 20 miles on all electric range and stuff is cool. So you can go watch that if you're curious. But anyway, let us know your thoughts on the interior of the XC90 in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.